When you start to realize that you might be autistic, you might be ADHD, heck, you might even be both, you're gonna have a lot of thoughts swirling around in your head. Memories of times where you can't believe people didn't notice, questions that you have for your fellow neurodivergent people or a healthcare provider potentially, and so much more. And trying to hold all of that in your brain, especially if it turns out you do have ADHD, is going to be really hard. It would be a lot easier if you had a place to store all of that information, all of those questions, something that was easy to access and easy to organize, something like a binder perhaps. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I made my own autism diagnosis binder and how you can make your own as well. First and foremost, hello everybody, my name is Megan. I'm 30 years old. I am autistic and ADHD, and I am a life coach for autistic, ADHD, and neurocurious folks, people who maybe aren't ready to claim a specific label, but they know they fit in here somewhere. So we've already talked about why a diagnosis binder can be so helpful. So now let's talk about what the heck is even in my diagnosis binder. So first we've got the front folder, which has my copy of the book, I Think I Might Be Autistic by Cynthia Kim. Highly recommend this book. It is so good. And then this front folder also holds my professional diagnosis paperwork. If you haven't been professionally assessed, you can obviously skip this part, but it is nice to have it in one spot. Then we have the first official section, which is tests. This is where I found and printed every reliable self-assessment on autism that I could possibly find online, including, but probably not limited to, there's probably more now, the AQ10, which I filled out for myself, and I also had my husband fill out for what he noticed in me. The full autism spectrum quotient, the AQ. Then we've got the empathy quotient, the EQ. Then I forget what this one is called. It might be the systemizing quotient. Then we have the Rietveld Autism Asperger Diagnostic Scale, aka the RADS-R, which many of you have probably heard of. Then we have the Aspie quiz. Not a huge fan of like the word Aspie anymore, but this quiz is really helpful because look at how they organize like your results. It's in this really cool graphic that I find helpful. Then we have the self-report camouflaging autistic traits. This is really good if you're a high masker. Then we've got the RBQ, which I believe is repetitive behavior questionnaire. Then there is alexithymia, which is difficulty identifying or expressing your emotions. Extreme demand avoidance questionnaire. Executive skills questionnaire revised. And then of course I've printed out the females and autism/Asperger's a checklist. I don't love the genderization of autism. I think all kinds of people can have all kinds of autistic traits, but this checklist does provide some autistic traits that are often ignored because they tend to be present in women. Although, you know, it's, like I said, the genderization is problematic. That's a whole other video, but this checklist is helpful. Next up is traits and symptoms, where I just have like this really cool color-coded spreadsheet that goes over the trait, the frequency that I experience it, how I currently cope with that trait, and how I've coped in the past. This can be really helpful for identifying masking. And finally, we have studies. So I just found some studies that related to my experience and I printed them out, highlighted them, annotated them per the usual. Journey to Diagnosis for Women with Autism was a great paper. Challenging Psychiatric Classification, Healthy Autistic Diversity in the Neurodiversity Movement sounds like a great paper, but I personally found it to be pretty fluffy and unhelpful. But I never would have known that if I hadn't read it. Hey, what is that? Oh, this is my autism discovery binder. This is the tool that I created when I wasn't super sure if I was autistic or not, and I needed a place to store all of my thoughts about it. Wow, you made a whole binder? That sounds overwhelming, but convenient? Yeah, this is definitely a labor of love. There's so much in here. I compiled all of the free self-assessments I could find online. I created a spreadsheet to track my traits and symptoms. And then I also put together a bunch of different studies that I could then print out, highlight, and annotate. Okay, well, I was actually gonna talk to you about this because I've been thinking I might be autistic, and this looks really helpful. Is there any way I could get like, I don't know, my own copy? Of course, I actually sell the digital version of this binder in my shop. It usually costs $25, but for Black Friday, I'm doing a sale where you can pay what you want. I can pay what I want? That is so generous, thank you. I'll be sure to go check out the binder. Yeah, you should definitely go get the binder on Black Friday, but it's actually my whole shop that's pay what you want Black Friday through Cyber Monday. So if you wanna make sure you don't forget about the deal, go to the link in the description to sign up for reminder emails. Oh my goodness, I'm absolutely absolutely gonna do that. Thank you so much for letting me know about this. So you might be wondering, how did I know what to include in this binder? For me, if I had to look something up more than once, or heaven forbid had to actually retake a quiz or a test or an assessment, I just printed that bad boy out and put it in the binder because I do not need to be taking the RADS-R every other month. Another big question I get about my diagnosis binder is, how did I know what traits to include? A lot of people who are first figuring out they might be autistic are really unsure of like, is this trait autism? Is this just me? Like, it's very fuzzy. For me, what I did is I went through all of those tests and assessments and I highlighted the questions that really stuck out to me. Either I really identified with it or I really didn't. And then I kind of figured out what is the trait inherent in that question, and I put that in the spreadsheet. But if you need more help with this, I actually sell a digital version of this binder. And in that digital version, I provide a list of potential traits that can help get your brain started in thinking of what your traits might be. Another question I get all the time is, where did you find all of those tests? So I found most of those tests on embrace-autism.com. That's a great resource, but some of them aren't even in my binder because they're new since I started this binder. There's now the monotropism quiz. Highly recommend that. I don't believe that's on embraceautism.com. I believe if you type monotropism quiz though, it will pop up. And I also believe there's a new pathological demand avoidance questionnaire out there now. So both of those, the pathological demand avoidance and the monotropism quiz, in addition to all those other quizzes I mentioned, are available in a spreadsheet in the digital version of the binder that I sell. I am not selling the quizzes themselves because those are free on the internet. What I am selling is the convenience of having them all in one spot so that you don't have to search the internet for them. Finally, I get asked a lot, how did I find the studies? Honestly, I just go to Google Scholar and then I type in autism + and then whatever it is that I want to know that's related to autism. So for me, this is autism plus menstruation, autism plus PMDD, autism plus high emotional sensitivity, autism plus giftedness. These are some things that I have searched and have found really useful. In the digital version of the binder, I have gone through and found some really helpful articles, and I've linked not only the full article, so not just the abstract, the full article, but I've also put the abstract in there so that you can get a feel for what the article is even about. Finally, one question I get a lot is, can I make a diagnosis binder for other things besides autism? Yes, of course you can. I do believe there are the most reliable self-assessments about autism specifically online, but there are some for ADHD. I think I've found one or two that I like for borderline personality disorder. There are a couple of screeners for OCD that are out there, but the most reliable self-assessments are available for autism, but you can build a binder around any diagnosis. Personally, I sell the digital binders for autism and for ADHD. And that kind of wraps everything up. That's how you build a diagnosis binder. Now, I have called mine, the digital ones I sell, discovery binders because I don't want there to be any confusion. I cannot diagnose. But if you're working on your own self-diagnosis journey or you're preparing for a professional assessment, these binders can be so helpful. I personally brought my binders into my professional assessment, and my assessor told me she wished everyone had these. Now, as a quick caveat, not all professionals are going to feel that way. Some professionals are going to feel threatened by you potentially knowing more about this than them. They're going to accuse you of trusting Dr. Google more than you trust them and all of this other stuff. So not every professional is going to appreciate a good binder, but the good ones will. Just make sure you trust your healthcare professional before you bring your binder in so that you don't end up dismissed or invalidated. But regardless of whether or not you're using the binder for a professional assessment, it can still be such a good tool for people just learning to explore their brain. Feel free to utilize this video to make your own binder, or if you'd like the convenience of having one that's already kind of pre-set up for you, go to the link in the description to my shop where you can get the digital binders for autism or for ADHD. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.